Good afternoon, everyone. So today is the presentation of comparative literature, and I am Drashti Joshi, and my co-presenter is Gayatri, and we are going to present on comparative literature in India, an overview of its history. This article is written by Subha Chakraborty Dasgupta. We both are the presenter, and these are some details. These are some points to ponder which we are going to discuss in today's presentation. Introduction about authors, abstract, key points, key arguments and analysis of arguments, conclusion and references. So this is the introduction of author Shobha Chakraborty Dasgupta. She is a visiting professor of Department of Modern Indian Language and Literary Studies in University of Delhi, and she was also a previously professor at Department of Comparative Literature at Jadavpur University, and she has done edit. She is editor of Jadavpur University Journal of Comparative Literature, and she also taught at the Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. And this is a survey by her, and this is the abstract of this article. And in this abstract, the essay, this abstract is focusing on the development of comparative literature in India from Tagore's vision of world literature and early British influence to increase focuses on Indian language and the Western. And this is also a paradigm of approaches in comparative literature studies. In the last few years, comparative literature has taken on a new perspective, engaging with the different areas of culture and knowledge, particularly those related to marginalized space, along with the focuses on recovering new areas of non-hierarchical literary relationship. So this article focuses on multiple diversities of like cultural studies, this diaspora studies and other things as well. So these are some key points which discussed in article. Like the article provide an overview of a history and development of comparative literature as an academic discipline in India. It traces the beginning of comparative literature in India, and now it focuses on 20th century as well. This over the time scope expanded to include comparison with the literature from Latin American, African, and other parts of world beyond the West. Area studies and component were introduced. Key development include a focuses on reception studies rather than just influence, studying translation, interdisciplinary approaches, and connection between comparative literature field like cultural studies. The main goal is seen as a constructive literary histories, nurturing creativity and enhancing civilization gestures. Again, diversity forces much work remain to be done in a systematic study Indian and in inter-Asian literary relationship. So in this article, she is talking about Indian English literature and how it compare with the Western and other literature as well. So these are some key arguments which she discussed. Like she started the argument with Tagore's view of world literature, uh, and after that she further studied the cultural things and also westernized like another countries literature like Canadian literature, African literature, Japanese literature, and Chinese literature as well. So this article is divided into 7 parts. The beginning, Indian literature as a comparative literature, centers of comparative literature studies, reconfiguration of areas of comparison, research directions, interface with translation studies and cultural studies, and non-hierarchical connectivity. So first is the beginning. So long before the establishment of comparative literature as a discipline, there were texts focusing on comparative aspect of literature in India, both from the point of view of relation with literature and other part of world, and from the perspective of inter-Indian literary studies. So late 19th century concept of world literature gained transcend in the Bengal, particularly with the surge in translation activities and poet advocate from connection with global literature for relationships of joy. So this is by Satyendra Datta, and in 1904 he stated that relationship of joy. In that he was talking about this Rabindranath Tagore's Vishwa Sahitya. block, Vishwa Sahitya meaning the world literature, and Tagore's use of Vishwa Sahitya and its declaration that it was a commonly referred to as a comparative literature influenced the nomenclature of the emerging discipline. So this is also the view of Tagore's. This critic, Buddhadeva Bose, he also argued against views of Tagore's Vishwa Sahitya, and this beginning of the comparative literature department in the Jadavpur University, it also focuses on the how this Indian English literature, comparative literature started in the Jadavpur University, and also it says that comparison between the Iliad and Ramayana and between Sanskrit and Greek drama, talking about both Aristotle Poetics and Bharat Munit Natya Shastra into consideration format the core of section for syllabus. So this Indian literature and comparative literature in this Jadavpur University start about Indian literature and the comparative of Indian literature with Western. Like in the 1970s, comparative literature at Jadavpur University in India show new pedagogy perspective focuses on Indian literature entered the syllabus not as a nationalist assertion but due to shared histories in contiguous spaces. So comparative literature study in India centered around Indian literature. So now in the first, like in the beginning of this comparative literature of Indian comparative literature, it only focuses on the Sanskrit language, and after that they were focusing on the other languages as well. Like in this article, it says that older definition of Indian literature, often with only Sanskrit, the center with the focuses on a few canon texts to negligence of other, particularly oral and performative tradition, had to be abandoned. And after that, Aziz Ahmad emphasized striking the dialectic of unity and difference through linguistic overlaps and historical contexts. Interdisciplinary approach is evident in the comparative studies covering languages, origin, manuscript, culture, and performing tradition, visual art, print culture, and modernity. Delhi University's department has students from diverse parts of India, so that allows them to enter in the varieties of other languages as well. So that's the Indian context of comparison of Indian languages and center of comparative studies. So there are so many centers for this comparative studies. First is Jadavpur University, where they established the department for this comparative studies, and after that it established in 1964 in the Delhi University as the modern Indian language department established. And after that, in the 19th century, Tamil studies including comparison of classic Tamil text with the Greek, Latin and Japanese tradition. In the 1980s and 1990s, other comparative literature centered emerged across India. So there were many centers after this Jadavpur University and Delhi University's establishment of centers, and there are so many centers of this comparative studies. Like for example, in the Punjab University, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar University, and Jawaharlal Nehru University, there are also a center of this comparative studies. And after that, in 1999, Dravidian University is also established as they established the Department of Dravidian Comparative Literature and Philosophy. And after that, there is during the period of National Association of Comparative Literature emerged Indian Comparative Literature Association. So this is ICLA, which is established in Jadavpur University, and another is Comparative Indian Literary Association CILA, which is established in Delhi. So these both association worked as a comparative studies, and now they both merged and became the Comparative Literature Association of India, CLAI. So they both merged and became the one association for the comparative studies. So there are so many centers around the globe. Like there is also a center in Gujarat, in Surat. There is a Narmad University, and there is a center for comparative studies. Now, further discussion, I would request my co-presenter Gayatri to complete the presentation.
Hello everyone, I am Gayatri Nimawat. So let's move further. The fourth topic is reconfiguration of areas of comparison. It was started by Jadavpur University, and then there were many changes in comparative literature. In 1980s, Jadavpur University added Gabriel Garcia Marquez' 100 Years of Solitude, and then after Latin African and African literature to the syllabus. Then in 1990s, it introduced the area studies on African, Latin American, and Canadian literature, and as well as in Bangladesh. Canadian studies led to a focus on oral traditions within the comparative literature space. Then Chinese and Japanese literature components were outlined with the current research scholars exploring these areas. An area studies module for Pakistani literature was introduced. Then in today time, the department host centers for African, Latin American, and Canadian studies, organizing research and seminars. The curriculum reflects a dynamic approach, embracing diverse global literary traditions. Then when we discuss in a research direction in late 1990s and early 2000s, comparative literature research expanded across India with UGC's special assistance program. For example, Kolkata University explored a 19th century literary relations between Europe and India. Saurashtra University focused on Indian Renaissance, translating authors and studying travelogues. Then Dibrugarh University emphasized translation, rare text, and folk forms. Jadavpur University researched East-West literary relations, Indian literature, translation studies, and Third World literature. Then Manabendra Bandyopadhyay translated text from third world countries. And the area of comparative literature were genres, themes, literary historiography, and annotated bibliographies reshape popular concept like romanticism, offering diverse readings in the Indian context. Interface with translation studies and cultural studies. 21st century comparative literature embraced translation studies and cultural study as the integral components. Then translation studies. So Hyderabad University pioneered translation studies, and now a common focus in comparative literature departments. Translation seen as rewriting. Jadavpur University has a dedicated center for the translation of Indian literature. And when we talk about interdisciplinary approaches, Delhi University's course explores city and villages themes in Indian literature, delving into human habitat system, ecology, archaeological evidence, and accounts of travelers from different culture. Jadavpur University's performance course studies social behavior patterns through ritual and theater, viewing them in terms of separation and integration. And it also focus on diaspora studies. Some new comparative literature centers established in recent universities engage in diaspora studies and non-hierarchical connectivity. Comparative literature isn't just about studying different literature, it's about connecting them in meaningful ways. Imagine it like exploring a vast landscape of story where each culture is a mountain peak with its own unique view. Studying comparative literature is like climbing between these peaks, discovering how ideas and themes flow between them, creating a richer understanding of both the individual culture and the larger human landscape. This connection isn't about judging who's better. It's about co-construction. As Kumkum Sangari said in his article, co-construction, sharing histories and building bridges through translation and understanding. We are still exploring this connection, uncovering new literary relationships, and rewriting histories that didn't just focus on single culture. In the end, it's about using literature to celebrate our differences and find common ground, fostering creativity and a more united world. So, in conclusion, comparative literature in India has come a long way from its early days of comparing Sanskrit epic to Greek classics. undergoing decolonization and embracing diverse voice. It now engages with marginalized perspective, inter-Asian dialogues, and the transformative role of translation. Today, it aims to reconstruct literary histories, nurture creativity, and promote inclusivity, contributing to a more connected world through shared narratives. These are the references. Thank you.